Hello. This will be the demo session for IndieWebCamp Austin 2017. Everyone's still working, but we will be taking the stage one at a time. Aaron is going to run the screen. Yes, of course. Please use the restroom. Take your time. Everyone at home, also please use the restroom. Whatever you got to do. Yeah. Yes. Nothing. I have support for multiple media things in a post, just because it's like an array and it iterates over them. And I usually don't post more than one picture at a time. So like check-ins are a new exception. Previously, just image, like they're super huge. Something that should be nice, like pseudo gallery kind of thing. Well, all I had to do was wrap it with a container, put a display grid on it, and two CSS rules to make it do this. CSS rule. It's bonkers. So yeah, it's still the same. Like without grid, these are just full width images, and they're in one wrapper. This is a display grid, and I said repeat autofit. Max should be between, I think it's actually between one fractional unit to like basically squeeze them equally, or at the most make one of them like 100%. That's it. Autofill, like there's a bit more size. Oh, no, that makes sense. So it's going to autofit. The smallest it will make them is 25%. So if there's more, yeah, it'll wrap. And so like if I made it, if I said the smallest was 50%, it would wrap them. There's another rule you can do here to actually like make, when they're alone, make them spread out. What? Yeah, I haven't played with that yet.
But it has to do with different portion, different type of images.
I'm doing this in columns, so it's only worried about the column sizing right now. So that when grid starts to go two-dimensionalizing, starts
It's a nice little thing, like probably a lot of
yeah,
upward,
right.
which is there's a lot of scale, and I think CSS grid was still being worked on at that point. It wasn't shipped yet, but I don't remember that it would. I think it still would resolve that use case.
Yeah, I think it's still only shipped like a few months ago. Really. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So that was a quick hack. Very pleased with like one wrapper div and 2 CSS rules. A lot more.
Should we start with demos?
Yeah.
I think I can. I don't want to go first because you're gonna like.
You're gonna go first.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I want to go before you.
You want to use my computer?
I guess I can.
It's
It's all deployed.
Do we usually do notes on these in an Etherpad or just in the chat?
Etherpad is probably easier to copy to the wiki later.
Etherpad at IndieWeb.org/note. Just notes. Say it.
I thought you were gonna start now.
Who would like to go third?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you for stepping up.
You're next, or after fourth. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Are you on IRC people?
Yeah, I just had it myself.
What's your template?
TV Brown is my IRC.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we're going over that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. It's working. This is like the minimum viable get anything done. All right. So I set out, I started to work on my things backwards. So I started out with like trying to actually figure out person tag replies. And that's, let's see, something like that. Close, that. I don't know if that's readable, so I'm going to zoom it in a bit. And I basically started to code on this and realized it had a bunch of things that we hadn't figured out yet. So I kept digging and figuring things out until I got to the point where I realized I didn't have enough time to implement all the details. But the side effect of this is that I figured out that if you want to post a person tag reply, there are a bunch of interesting details. So one thing is I first explicitly said, yeah, I want to do that. But one detail is being able to post the person tag reply with multiple URLs for someone's H card, which is something I already do on my photos that I post with person tags. So, for example, if you go to here, even the very first photo I posted, I don't know what just happened. There's like at least a couple of folks that have like multiple URLs for like their site, their I think it's their Facebook, yeah, and then Twitter. And so that's like, okay, I haven't even figured that out. I want to do an example for that. The other big aha moment I had is that a person tag reply is not just a normal reply like a comment or a like, but is actually an edit post. And that was like, it took me a while to come to that conclusion. But literally when you're person tagging someone's photo, you're basically saying, I want to edit your photo and add this person tag to it. You're not saying I want to make a comment or I'm just liking it. You're like, you actually want to tagging it. Same thing's true of a location tag. Same thing's true if you want to untag a photo. So someone posts a photo of you and they tag you in it, and you're like, I don't want that. We have this notion of an untag post, which I don't think anyone's implemented yet, but it's sort of like, this is how we would do this if someone did this. And that's also an edit request. So long story short, I figured out kind of like an implementation plan and how this would work, but didn't actually code any of it. And at that point, with less than 2 hours to go, I switched to the second set of goals, which was getting the payment stuff working, or rather improving my payment page. So right now, I started this weekend with do I not have an IndieWebCamp example here? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so New York City IndieWebCamp, I just did a simple pay page. And fortunately, that still works. So step one, don't break existing functionality. Like I just clicked the link on the wiki that I hadn't edited. So that just worked without working. But the key thing I added was, where is the payment page with amount? And this has been on my, what is going on? Weird, okay. To basically put like a slash and then an amount. And that's, I started to go down that route of like, go to the pay page. So I don't have any UI for this right now. This is just, my primary use case was, like I went to the movies with a friend and he's like, oh, can you just like Venmo me, charge me for that? And I want to give him a link that's like, oh, just pay me this amount. so they can click through, or they can see the amount. And so now I can type in /10, and it does that. And it does the PayPal link. The Venmo link is still just a plain Venmo link because I already given the option to do that. But then I added some additional support for things like if you are doing something like, oh, I'm going to pay you $1.9999. It's like, nope, you're going to pay me $2. Yeah. Yeah, so I was like, okay. Or let's say you're like, I'm going to pay you $1 million. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to redirect you to, you can pay me $14,000 at the maximum current US like tax-free gift amount. So I put a cap on how much you can try to pay me. And let's see, did I do anything else? I think if you just like type random stuff, what happens? Oh, I thought I redirected that to get rid of that string. Oh well. Well, anyway, that's so. Yeah, that should just all work, and I think plain decimals just work. So next here is to add. I think Square Cash allows you to put the amount in. So if I had a Square Cash button, that would provide another way for people to pay me there. And then next on top of that would be to add the W3C web payment request API. But I didn't get to that. This is as far as I got. Kind of idiot-proofed it a little bit, which I figure like is a good first step if someone mistypes something or you know, have it be a little bit forgiving. So yeah, and if someone just types too many digits, like, you know, 225000, does that work? It just, okay, that needs fixing. Okay, anyway, that's that. I added the amount thing, so now I can, there's several people, including Ben Wertmuller, who have been like, okay, I'm gonna charge you, but I need to fix this on my site so I can just send you a URL. And now I'm gonna like send him that. I don't know if he's watching the stream. But, that's it. That was my one minor improvement I got done live on my site.
All right, who's next? Next, yeah. Wait, there's a list.
We're so prepared. All right. So I set out today to also work on my payment page. Before today, I had a payment page, and it looked like slightly different than this. It was basically this, and it had a free form text that you could enter an amount. And I also had URLs, but they had required a question mark. So you had to do !10, and that was because I implemented this all client side before.
So you did take a step forward beyond what you had before.
Yep.
Slight, small.
Slight, yep. So, but since you mentioned that yesterday, it annoyed me that it required a question mark, so I made it work without it. So now it's just /pay/10, much better URL. It's the details. And gotta refresh, hard refresh to get the new JavaScript. Okay. And this is where it starts getting crazy. So I started digging into the payments, web payments, or the payment request API, the new one from W3C. That spec was a nightmare to read. It's meant to be read by people implementing browsers, not by people trying to use the spec. Google has a good summary, Mozilla has an okay summary, and Stripe has a library that just does it all for you. So I ended up digging into that and trying to get that to work. I found some interesting things with that. Stripe, for some reason, I'm guessing because maybe the browser support wasn't quite as good when they started, but if there isn't a credit card saved in the browser, their button just disappears. It doesn't show the button. So my fallback support for that is the existing credit card payment page, which is Stripe checkout. This has been around for ages, works well, looks good on a mobile device. But if you go into the browser and add a credit card to here, and I don't know why, but for some reason the Stripe UI doesn't let you add one into the browser this way, even though it should. So for now, you have to wedge the credit card into the browser some other way. Now that there's a credit card saved, if I reload this page, I get the fancy new button. And when you click this, it opens up the browser UI for choosing a credit card. And I can choose that credit card, card billing address required, and done, and pay, enter the CVV, and it's going to process, and it should decline that because that was a test card. But if I go to my test site, which has the oh my God, it's not letting the UI through because it's not a valid SSL cert in this browser. Hang on.
You can't change yourself a new cert.
I have to download the root cert into this account. There, now I have a secure site, and there's the button. So now if I do this and use my test card, I can pay, and processing. There it goes. It worked. So that's
Successful.
a pretty good experience. Pretty happy with that. The other cool thing that the Stripe API does is they added support for Apple Pay. So I didn't have to do any additional work to support Apple Pay beyond supporting the new payment request API, which is actually wrapped by Stripe's library. And on a phone, it looks like this. Their logic takes care of replacing the button with an Apple Pay button. And
Whoa.
And when you click that, it opens up the normal Apple Pay prompt. And it just goes, it just works, it's done. There is, like, I didn't have to do any different code for that flow. It's the same Stripe tokenized credit card mechanism. And it just goes, it's kind of amazing. Which also means in Safari, oh, I don't think this is gonna work in Safari because I'm on my other user account. I'm not signed into my Apple ID in this user. Yeah, so if I was signed into my Apple ID in this browser, in this user, it shows Apple Pay in desktop Safari as well, which triggers the phone prompt to confirm it, which is pretty slick. And as you can see, there's no Apple Pay configured in this user, so it shows the default fallback of Pay with Card, which is still pretty good. Yeah, so it turns out there are a lot of edge cases to deal with when you're implementing this, of like browser support and whether things work or not, when there's no default card set up. And it's quite a bit of work, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And overall, it wasn't too bad, all things considered. And after overhearing some of the context things, I also implement some sanity checks for things like fractions of cents. Now it rounds those properly, and if you try to pay me $1 million, you can't.
Oh, but it doesn't just like cap it?
I thought it did. It was supposed to redirect to 14,000. No idea what happened. Oh well. At least you can't try to pay me $1 million. So yeah. that took the whole time, and I did not get a chance to work on my stretch goal.
What's your stretch goal?
Documentation for micropub,
Oh, yeah.
micropub vocabulary.
That's why.
Well, I guess I didn't really do anything. I can't move my mouse past this point. That's really strange. Y'all ever seen that before?
I haven't, no.
It thinks.
Optimal if you optimize for you.
Can y'all see everything all right? All right, that's fine.
The problem is just dropping the size instead of rounding it up. Once you don't. In fact, if you put any fractional penny, I make it. So like I don't
Yeah.
All right, so I wanted to work on something related to replies and bookmarks and just some of the kind of missing pieces in micro.blog and the kind of discussion we had at the beginning of the day about supporting bookmarks and likes from indigenous on the iPhone. I wanted to go down and explore that a little bit, so that's what I did. Basically, I implemented bookmark of in the micropub support on micro.blog, and I mapped it to favorites because that seems the most. If you haven't seen this before, this is the micro.blog Mac app, and so these are like my favorites. And I'll open the iPhone simulator, and if you're in here just in mobile Safari, you can hit share. And if you haven't seen this before, this is the indigenous sharing extension. And so you're on any page and you say, I want to share this and I want to make it a bookmark. And so this sends a micropub, post to micro.blog. And then if I go back to my app and I reload, I get the post added to my favorites. And so it basically gets the micropub request, and it does the things you'd expect. It parses the micro formats, it checks if there's a photo, it includes that, and if the URL is to an existing micro.blog user, it ties it to that micro.blog user. So this is Aaron, and I can click on his profile and see his posts.
And if it's not an existing,
And if it's not, I worked on that too, because this is something that I want to improve in micro.blog, because I feel like micro.blog is really open and supports a lot of things, but it currently, and until today, really required there to be user accounts for everything. And so what I did is, I'll show you with another site. So I didn't know about this until today. I don't know. I overheard someone saying IndieWebCamp. So IndieWebCamp doesn't have a micro.blog account. Just too bad. But if you need an invite code, let me know. So if I go to this page and and I say I want to bookmark that on micro.blog. It does the thing. It sees if it's a micro.blog user, and in this case, it's not. And so what I've done is basically treated that as a domain name. So it's kind of like a fake user, kind of.
So you can bookmark anything.
So you can book, yeah, because I should back up a little. What I ran into quickly, I didn't realize this when I started, is that you're in another app and you want to bookmark something. There's no guarantee what you're bookmarking is going to be in micro.blog already, right? There's no guarantee that person has an account. There's no guarantee that micro.blog knows about that post. Because right now in micro.blog, when you favorite something, you're favoriting something that it already knows about because it's in a feed for an account, right? Right. So this opens up like a new thing that I hadn't really thought of, which is that you should be able to favorite anything, even if it's not in micro.blog.
Just add a delicious stuff.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's. I think it's flexible enough where you could use this for a few different things, but so it gets that post, it sees there's not a user account, and then it says, okay, I'm just going to make a domain name for this person, and then it gets the H card, gets the profile photo, and kind of sets it up as this kind of like domain name user, I guess. I don't know what it's kind of a user account, but it's kind of not. And I think this is the path forward for like opening up more of micro.blog. So the obvious thing here, like the next step, is so web mentions come in, and the web mention is from a user that doesn't have a micro.blog account. Right now, I ignore this because I don't know how to kind of chain them together in a conversation. So I did work on adding what's happening here with bookmarks, favorites, to web mention support, and I think it's going to work fine, but I didn't deploy it yet because I'm not really prepared to like completely test and troubleshoot that in the limited time today. And I think there are some issues that I'm going to need to work around because like you could wire up Bridgie or something, but then you're getting web mentions that don't have like necessarily a domain name for that account, because I think that the URLs, they might come from Twitter URLs, they might come from something else. So I need to think that through a little bit more, but I think that this does open up things so that I can expand that in the future, because right now it's kind of annoying that web mentions can come in, but they have to be tied to some kind of user account for it to put replies together. So I think this will be good, but I need to think through and test a little more for the web mention side of it. But for favorites, I think it's working pretty well, and I deployed this as live.
Does that send a web mention back to the original, like Bookmarks?
No, not right now. No, should it? I don't know.
But because it could be, then it would show up there as a bookmark.
Yeah, this is something that like micro.blog, since favorites are private right now, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't.
I can't go and see things you favorited.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, so I think it still kind of makes sense for them to be treated as bookmarks in terms of like microformats and micropub, but they're private, yeah. So it doesn't. You can't like link to your own. There's no like public URL for your bookmark, your favorite. So yeah, so that's what I worked on, and actually this is not exactly what I thought, where I thought this would lead, but I'm actually really excited about where it led, because I think it's going to be really good for micro.blog playing even more nicely with other IndieWeb stuff. So that's it.
Tom Brown.
You don't have your plan.
Oh, yeah, I can just use it. I don't know
This is very precious. Not out.
Okay, well. There we go. Okay, I just did a simple IndieOff project to go through the exercise of adding an IndieOff login to an app. And I made a short post where I linked to the GitHub repo and the Heroku site. I just followed the instructions on IndieWebCamp for developers, and then created this Heroku site for the existing project I had, which is just a Rails project. And I won't go through the entire thing, but you can get the idea. Oops. See if I typed that right. Oh, there we go. I did. So anyway, I'm not logged into Twitter or whatever, but you probably know what happens. So anyway, just a real simple project. The GitHub repo is linked on my site in case anybody wants to check it out. Thanks.
Sweet. All right, David. Do I test your computer? Since I do not have Heroku with one file.
Well, hello again.
What?
So I have not launched anything on my site, so this is limited to my test site, which is where I do things that before I deploy them to my site. So this is where you'll see all sorts of really junky posts that don't mean anything, except testing stuff. So my goal for today was actually to be able to send things automatically to my site by a variety of means. So earlier today I was spamming Aaron's site unintentionally, then later intentionally, by using one of his, well, I didn't stop when I found out that he was actually consuming it, to see if the code that I use to retrieve more details about a site could do so for a micropub request. So I kept running Quill, sending micropub requests and seeing if I could enhance them on the way to their final destination. Then discovered there were a whole bunch of problems with that on the micropub side, fixed those. At some point I'll have to see if my pull request came through by the end of the day. And the other part of it was to not include micropub and basically try to do it directly, my use cases, from my phone. That created a whole boatload of problems, but I think I have something. So I took finding the right combination of an application on my phone that could actually send authentication, because I did not use a more traditional bookmarklet system. I actually want to make sure that I'm logging in every time, but I don't want to actually have to log in every time, which involved the fact that the REST API in WordPress doesn't actually have authentication, which, anyway. So that's a whole other thing. I will probably fix that problem as soon as I read my newly purchased copy of OAuth 2.0 Simplified. See if I can figure that out. But in the meantime, I put something together, so this should work. So I found an app on the phone that will allow me to share a link. I don't know if that can be seen.
Well, hold it up.
In my,
Find out.
yes, to share a link in my browser to a random website that happened to be in my browser already. It pops up a choice between bookmark or like. I just randomly keyed into things. So I'm going to like a post. And assuming that worked, and knowing in demos it doesn't, if I refresh this page and Control R work on a Mac. No, guess not. Is that the button?
Yeah.
That's not the refresh button? Oh, there it is. Oh, I should see it there. So that did actually work. For some odd reason, I happen to have that already in my web browser to remind me what I should be doing on 13th, although I still have RSVP. But that just came in directly from here. So a lot more stuff to do to make that before I would actually let anybody else do it, possibly even before I let myself do it. But it seems to work, though, surprisingly. And only 5 more of those, and I'll be able to cover most scenarios.
When you say 5 more of those, you mean like?
I have to go. Well, I have to go create more
it's not a bookmarklet, but I found something that will do a custom crafted URL post. The author uses it for home automation, so it does allow you to add headers and add post variables, and optionally pop up a box to fill in what you want, including with a pull down, which I have to thank that guy.
Can you tell us the name of the
Let me see. I did a little search earlier. It's HTTP request shortcuts by Wabadoo. That's WABOODOO. And it allows variables, and apparently there's an experimental voice activation thing I didn't have time to play with, but it's HTTP and HTTPS URLs, built-in or custom URLs, share from other applications, basic and digest authentication, custom request headers, display response in a toast dialog window or run silently. Requests can be delayed until internet connectivity becomes available. Value placeholders. So basically, the URL forwarder one, which several people have recommended over the years, doesn't have any options. So I can't add anything in there to do this. So this was updated last week, so it looks like the developer is very actively adding features. And it's open source, which is nice. The other one is too, but the developer is not actively adding features. So.
Nice.
I'll find some other interesting things to do with that app.
Hey. I'll be over here later.
Yeah, let me toss this back to you.
If anybody has the Etherpad up, maybe they can note me. So I did a few things today. The first I showed off this morning because I was doing it as people were coming in, but I made a little shortcut for Alfred on Mac OS. It's a little like quick launch thing. And so I can now open IndieWeb wiki pages like micropub developers, and that's not the right page. No, that's not it either. Well, I should probably do a page I know exists, like Bezos. And that just saves me a few keystrokes. I look at the IndieWeb wiki a lot, especially when I'm doing the This Week in the IndieWeb podcast. So that just saves a little bit of time. Made a post about it on my site, and folks can download it and try it out. Someday it would be nice to have it do some autocomplete, and I think that should be really possible with some scripting. But for now, this is very good for me. The next thing that I did was I wanted to have my site support WebSub correctly, so that whenever I make a post, it should become possible to subscribe not just to my main feed of all my posts, which historically is what I had, but also to be able to subscribe to H feeds from like the IndieWeb podcast. Not that anyone consumes that right now. Mostly that's done through a real RSS feed. But in the future, it should be possible. And then also I have tag pages, and I wanted to send out WebSub notifications whenever like a specific kind of tag thing was done. And these, like, it's not really something that you can easily demo. It's very back-end heavy, but I was able to take my little publishing hook that runs whenever a new post shows up for my static site over micropub, and it now watches when it finishes compiling and rsyncing the files to where their final destination is, and keeps track of what files have changed or are new, and then essentially like converts those into the URLs they will be at, and builds the request to ping Superfeeder. So it's a super simple thing, but it's a nice thing to knock out on Hack Day, and now I can start building WebSub things that like get notified by my site and do other stuff, which I think should be potentially interesting for other folks down the road. And then as a bonus thing, I did some other cleanups to my site. A big one here is for my photo posts and my check-ins. I can accept I can accept a ton of photos. It's just micropub, so like I can have as many photos attached to a post as I want. But in terms of display, they were just kind of like down the page. So they look like this. It's very large. Yeah, like here's a check-in with a single photo, and that kind of makes sense. It's like a big photo, cool little map, and that was it. But when there were 3 photos, it was a big nasty deal. So in like the last half hour, I wanted to play around a bit with Flexbox and CSS Grid. And I got a little bit into the Flexbox weeds before I remembered, like, oh yeah, this is exactly what Grid is for. So previously, these would just show up as images in the post. So I made sure that like I wrapped them all in one container. And I added 2 pieces of CSS to that container, one to turn on Grid and one to turn on auto fit. So it will take all of the children and it will put them side by side for the width of the container, but it stops at 33%. And so like so it will only put them 3 up and then it will wrap. And there's another few things to do to like make the spacing look right when it goes to 2 rows. So if I like bump this up to 50%, so there are a maximum of 2 side by side, like there's some margins and things to clean up because it's a little bit different. And I think there's a way. The last thing I would want to do for this is that if there are an odd number, for example, or if there is an odd one out, I want it to collapse down correctly on each row. So this last image here, I would actually want it to fill this space. And I think that's possible with Grid with a few more things. I've been reading about Grid here and there, and it all makes sense when I read it. But when I sit down to do it, it's very tricky. So yeah, just a few little random things from my site. And I think that's it. Is that it for demos? Is everybody? Do we have any?
We have a couple of people who did things remotely.
Cool. Should we try and show them up here?
Yeah.
You want to do that? You could give me a URL and then read. If there's like a thing to show, you could read the part from chat. You could show the thing on the screen.
Yeah.
Aaron, do you remember how you set up your Square link? Like, is cache.me something you have to set up, or is that automatic?
You need to count.
I haven't done.
You need to get a username for cash-up.
Okay.
And Sven says no hosts web.
Where's the username? Choose a role.
I will present ProxyPresent for remote presenters. Gregor says his project was to initially update his fork of Quill for posting read posts. He's been posting things about what he is reading or wants to read. So he was working on brainstorming some microformats for representing this, which can then be used to inform micropub clients for how to post them. And I believe there are now microformats on his page. So if we parse the page, this is now a read of this book.
Oh, wow.
And so yeah, read of with a cite of the book. And there's also a read status, which is just from the fallback text of want to read human readable text and the book with the machine readable value there. And it looks like it looks fine as text, and it works great in all fallback consumers, and then it's been enhanced with microformat properties. So that was pretty cool. And Sven worked on this neat feature, which is this IndieWeb.org/live URL that we had used a couple times to point people at the live stream. But it's always a pain to update that manually, especially because when you start and stop the stream, it gets a new YouTube URL. So he's had this bot posting the YouTube URLs into the IRC channel for a while now, and he today made it also edit this wiki page. So if you look at the edit history for the page, it's been his bot editing the page every time a new YouTube stream starts, and it just puts the embed code in the wiki. So there's the yeah. So here's adding the YouTube embed. So now we can always rely on IndieWeb.org/live being the most recent active live stream.
That's kind of amazing.
And it just happens automatically because his bot's watching it.
Thanks, bots. Thanks, man. That's really cool.
Oh, and
What? Oh. Oh, you made it.
so
Yes.
upcoming Homebrew Website Clubs, presumably parsed from the event list,
Events page.
page, dynamically edited or creating this,
Finally.
and then that gets, I guess,
We'll look at the homepage. Is it there? Scroll down.
sure is, and I presume that is like transcluded from,
Yeah. He commented out the previous events.
and it's just linked to that. That's a great way to do it.
I
So
think he just saved everyone like
One more step.
yeah,
20 hours in the next year.
Yeah.
Like,
Or that page for being stale.
right.
so that's awesome. Thanks, Sven,
Yeah, that's great.
and Sven's bot. Cool. I think that's, is that it from the room, people, or was anybody else?
I didn't see any other links. Okay.
I saw this post that Chris wrote. I think it was just about our talk yesterday.
The session, yeah.
About the payments session. So
Oh, yeah. That was good.
it was good. Yeah, cool.
Right. Good job, everyone.
Yeah, great job, everyone. That was awesome. So yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks, Manton, for organizing this.
Let's thank all our sponsors.
Oh, right. Who's the sponsor? Wait. Sponsored by.
Yeah, thanks everyone for making it. Yeah, sponsors again, DreamHost. It's been great. Polycott Associates, Super Barnett, that's Tom Brown, and Micro.blog. It was really, I had a great time this weekend. Hope other people did too, and learned a lot. Was able to write some code and get that deployed, which was also awesome. So it's, I don't know, I'm really inspired to see what everyone's doing, and it's neat to see people face to face and meet new folks from the community. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
So anything else anyone needs to close with or anything?
Everyone go RSVP and register now for IndieWebCamp Baltimore.
Yeah, and it's early next year. When is it coming up?
January 20th and 21st in Baltimore, Maryland.
Awesome.
Registration is open now.
Register.
Flights out of Seattle are super affordable on Spirit Airlines.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yay. Shut it down.
Okay.